First of all, the shiur is a Yagdal Torah shiur, so we have to acknowledge the Achsanya, and I guess we're excited to shul also, Yagdal Torah. I have a long-standing relationship with Yagdal Torah. In case you don't know, I give a shiur when I'm here. Shabbos mornings in the museum, starting around 8:45, Amen, which is usually a little bit later, but we have a shiur, when I'm here, we have a shiur Shabbos morning. So I want to announce that, and on a selfish level, I want to announce, in case someone is not aware of my website, I am going to ask you to check it out, to visit. The name of my site is Inside Chassidus, I-N-S-I-D-E, Chassidus with 2 S's. Please visit. I have a lot of classes. I really have a lot of classes, and I make a living when you listen to me learn Chassidus. That's what I do. That's my job. That's my leben. So please check me out. Okay, I have an hour. Let's start, at least to say a few words. We're going to Yud Shvat. And this year, 70 years since the Histalkos of the Frierdiker Rebbe, and the unofficial, the spiritual beginning of the Siyas of the Rebbe. Although, as the Rebbe himself indicated, it wasn't until exactly 1 year later that the Rebbe officially accepted the Siyas, and he started saying Chasidus and so forth. So it's 70 years. It's a very, very, very long time. That means to remember the Frierdiker Rebbe, you have to be a minimum of 74, 75. Otherwise it's not shaykh. To remember the beginning of the Rebbe's Nesias, you have to be, let's just say, past middle age. Okay, I'm not going to say elderly because I'm getting there myself. But it's a lot of years. It's a lot of years. And there's a Chassidish Shavart that's brought in the Likutei Diburim from Rabbi Isaac Homler. Rabbi Isaac Homler was talking about Yitas Kislev when Alter Rebbe was released from prison. So Rabbi Isaac was a big chassid. He was a Gon and a Noivid and a Maskil and a serious Jew, but he was had a real connection to the Alter Rebbe. He was a real Makusher. So Rabbi Isaac Fabrengen once said that when the Alter Rebbe was released from prison, whom did the Eibishter do a favor for? And he explained that it's known by Chassidim that when the Alter Rebbe was sitting in jail, he was having incredible geschmack, incredible nachas ruach, from the fact that he was sitting in prison for the Baal Shem Tov. The Frierdiker Rebbe actually has a sikha where he writes that when the Alter Rebbe was in prison, he almost experienced a kales hanefesh. That means his neshama almost left the guf, because of the incredible delight, incredible tainug that he got, that he's suffering for Teres Baal Shem Tov. And what kept his neshama in this world was when he told that goy the meaning of ayeka, right? You all know the ayeka story when this academic asked the Alter Rebbe, what does ayeka mean? And the Alter Rebbe said that this is Hashem talking to every person at every moment of his life and asking him where you're holding in the fulfillment of your mission. So when he told it to this non-Jew, the Alter Rebbe heard it himself. And it affected in the Alter Rebbe Kvayochel Aniyah von Sheiv. So Rabbi Isaac Homler said the Alter Rebbe was sitting in jail, and for the Alter Rebbe there was considered a schus to sit in prison. When the Alter Rebbe was released from prison, whom did the Eibishter do a favor for? And Rabbi Isaac Homler said, La Hashem HaYeshua. That's the word. La Hashem HaYeshua means the Eibishter did himself a favor. The Eibishter did himself a favor, he released Alter Rebbe from prison. I think we all understand that when the Eibishter made the Rebbe the Nasi of our generation, and this was determined before the world was ever created, considering the historical position of our time, you can say without any hesitation, and perhaps even more so than Rabbi Isaac said it about the Alter Rebbe, La Hashem HaYeshua, the Eibishter did himself a favor, and he gave us this Rebbe of ours. And because, what would have happened if the Rebbe would not have become Rebbe? Yeah? So it's like saying, what would have happened if Moshe Rabbeinu didn't get the Torah? Now, of course, we're apt to think that's radical, that's a Chabadnik, it's a Meshuggah, it's a Meshachist. Yeah, normal people wouldn't speak that way. I think it's almost literally as true. And every day that passes, it becomes clearer and clearer. La Hashem HaYeshua, the Nesiyas of the Rebbe is so vital. is so important. It's just impossible to imagine the Jewish world without the Nesius of the Rebbe. I'm going to say another word, which I said it a few times, and then I went looking for my source and had a very hard time finding it. So I'm going to save you all the technical details, but the Frierdiker Rebbe was talking about Chayelo. The Frierdiker Rebbe was talking about Chayelo, and I looked up every sikh of Chayel for the Frierdiker Rebbe, from Tavshin Gimel till Tavshin Tes. So in one place, the Frierdiker Rebbe calls Chayelo the Groise Glickliche Tag. That means the great and fortunate day. I saw a sikh, I think in Tavshin Tes, where he calls Chayel the Heilige Tag, the holy day. In other words, Chayel, which is the day of the Yom Haledas of the Shnei Amoros HaGedolim, the birth of the great two luminaries, the Baal Shem Tov and Alter Rebbe, is the Groise Tag, Yom HaGadol. It's the Heilige Tag, it's the holy day, and it's the Glickliche Tag. Glicklich means a day of good fortune. There was a term that the Rabbeim used to use a lot, Glick. The reason I'm saying this is because the Rebbe, our Rebbe, when he talks about Yud Shvat, he calls it Yom HaGadol VaKodesh. In the Rebbe's letters, the standard allusion to Yud Shvat is Yom HaGadol VaKodesh, the Groise Heilige Tag, the great and holy day. And you can say whole drushes, what's Yom HaGadol, what's Yom HaKodesh, yeah? I think that Hasidim say the Groise Heilige Glickliche Tag. For Yud Shvat, it's a great day and it's a holy day, but it's an incredibly fortunate day, right? The Baal Shem Tov wasn't happy when Chayel happened. I'm not so sure the Rebbe was thrilled when Yud Shvat happened, but thank God it happened. Yeah, thank God that what the Eibishter needed to be was and is, and closer to home, Adang the Eibishter was Mira Mashayches. So Di Dal Damas, we all have the good fortune to be here and have a connection to the Rebbe, and we're a week from Yud Shvat, literally a week from Yud Shvat, and people are looking for ways to prepare. This is a shiur, this is a lecture, this is a speech, which is nice. But of course, the Rebbe made Chassidus easy. The Rebbe made Chassidus very easy. It's very simple. You do good deeds, you're Chassid. If you do fewer good deeds, then you need to do a few more. Mind and heart and soul are very important, and they're very much a part of the tradition of Chassidus, and certainly of Chassidus Chabad. But in our times, we all know this quite clearly, that we're more Lubavitch when we do more Lubavitch things. And each person in his own life and in his own way can interpret what that means, and by Hashem's help to grow as Yidden, to grow as Chasidim, to contribute to the honor of the Rebbe and to the hastening of the coming of Mashiach. So this is what the deal is. It's a week from Yud Shvat, and we're here to Fabring in conjunction with Yud Shvat. Now, the official topic of the class is the Maimer Basi Lagani of the previous Rebbe. The official topic is Maimer Basi Lagani. What you have is the Perek Yud, the 10th chapter is actually printed out, and behind it we have some excerpts, little quotes, little thoughts from the Basi Lagani, Hebrew translated into English. Any person who's even semi-familiar with the Basi Lagani will recognize these phrases, these quotes, because these are, it's a random selection. Not a random selection, it's a selection made by a person, Sakakal. These selections really overview, I think, at least to a great extent, the entirety of the Maimer Basi Lagani, and like I said, you'll recognize them. If you study Basi Lagani, if you listen to the Rebbe talk about Basi Lagani, you'll recognize most of these phrases, because they really are the fundamental ideas that the Basi Lagani teaches, and specifically, they're the fundamental ideas that the Basi Lagani teaches that the Rebbe pressed on those nerves for the last 70 years. Shtus de Kedusha, that's a nerve, yeah? Tzivas Hashem, that's a nerve. Bizbas HaOitzis, that's a nerve. All of these ideas that you have on the second sheet are ideas that by the Rebbe are everything. So a little background, okay, a little background. The story of Basi Lagani is very interesting. In 1923, Tafresh Pei Gimel, Shabbos Pasha's Boy and Shabbos Pasha's B'Shalach, the Frierdiker Rebbe said and wrote Maimorim, which are printed, you can buy them and read them. The Maimer of Pasha's Boy begins with Vehi be'etzem hayom hazeh yotzu kol tzivos Hashem eretz Mitzrayim. If you get a hold of the Sefer, we have it here in the library, about 15 lines down, it says, Ulahovin zeh yash lahagdim tchila mashakosa Basi Lagani achizikala. But 15 lines down, it says, to understand this, you have to explain Basi Lagani. In Tavshin Yud, either the Rebbe or the Frierdiker Rebbe, I don't know whose pen it is, crossed out the first 15 lines, took a maimer that the Rebbe Rayatz had written and said 27 years before, and reissued it as a brand new maimer for Yud Shvat, and then Yud Gimel Shvat, and then later Purim and Beis Nissen in the year Tafshin Yud. It's word for word a maimer which the Frierdiker Rebbe wrote and said in 1923 Tafshin Gimel. And the truth is, from 1945 onward, from Tafshin Hey, the Rebbe Rayatz Frierdiker Rebbe at the end of the year had a stroke, Lo Yaleinu, and he stopped writing and saying Chasidus. All the Maimorim, Tafshin Vav, Tafshin Zayin, Tafshin Ches, Tafshin Tes, Tafshin Yud, are Maimorim from the Russia years or from the Latvia years. In other words, the years that there were not a lot of Chassidim around, the Maimorim were not available, and the Maimorim were chosen somewhere between the Frierdiker Rebbe and the Rebbe. Those are very good choosers as far as I'm concerned. And the Maimer Basi Legani is verbatim, is word for it, a Maimer which was said 27 years of Pashas Boy. And of course, what's curious about it is that the Rebbe happened to be at Rostov those weeks. We know now from a note that Rabbi Chadakov left. Rabbi Chadakov has Rishimist, and they published it. One of the Kramers made a simcha, and they mefarsim a note from Rabbi Chadakov. Rabbi Chadakov said, "Hayoim shiperli kvei kedushas admor shlita." Today, the Rebbe told me that the first time he met the Frierdiker Rebbe was Chalamoid Sukkis Tafresh Pegimel, Sukkis of that year, a few months earlier. But the Rebbe visited Rostov for Pashas Boy and Beshalach, and the Frierdiker Rebbe would say the same maimer, word for word. That 27 years later would be the maimer of Istalkus. Yud Shvat is the yahrzeit for the Frierdiker Rebbe's grandmother. Yud Gimel Shvat is the yahrzeit for the Frierdiker Rebbe's mother. Beis Nissen is the Frierdiker Rebbe's yahrzeit for his father, the Rebbe Rashab. The maimer Basi Legani was divided up into 4 parts as opposed to 2. Originally it was 2. It was divided up into 4. 5 perakim for Yud Shvat, for the Rebbe's Nifka's yahrzeit. 5 perakim for Yud Gimel Shvat, which is the Frierdiker Rebbe's mother's yahrzeit. 5 perakim for Purim, and 5 perakim for Beis Nissen. That's the way the maimer was arranged. Officially, it was issued, it was prepared as a yahrzeit, Maimorim for yahrzeit. And by the way, for the record, I looked it up. The Frierdiker Rebbe was not in the habit of giving up Maimorim for Yud Shvat. The first time the Rebbe gave out a maimer for Yud Shvat was 1 year before, Tafshin Tes, 1949. There's a maimer, Kuntris Yud Gimel Shvat, and the second year was Tafshin Yud. In other words, in many years before the Rebbe was giving out Maimorim, there was no maimer for Yud Shvat. All of a sudden, in 1949, Tafshin Tes, the Rebbe gives out a maimer for Yud and Yud Gimel Shvat, and the following year in Tafshin Yud, the Rebbe Rayatz Nistal, Frierdiker Rebbe passes away, Shabbos morning. The Rebbe, as we all know, referred repeatedly, many times, to the maimer of Yud Shvat, as he called the maimer of Histalkus, the maimer of the Frierdiker Rebbe's passing. Although officially the Frierdiker Rebbe gave it out for a different purpose, the Rebbe says, "A Rebbe is ibezicha balabos." In spite of the Mamorei Chazal, in fact of the Maimer Chazal, which is brought in the Basi Legani itself, and so forth, a Rebbe is a balabos over himself. And the Rebbe knew, the Frierdiker Rebbe knew the Yud Shvat was going to be, and he gave out this maimer. So the Rebbe considered Basi Legani, this is all familiar, this is not new material. The Rebbe considered Yud Shvat, Basi Legani, the maimer that was the will of the Frierdiker Rebbe. And of course, the custom by the Rebbe was, and is, that every year on Yud Shvat, he would say a maimer Basi Legani, and he would study one Pedic, one chapter. So in 1951 he studied chapter 1, in 1952 he studied chapter 2, and in 1953 he studied chapter 3, and so on. And he finished in 1970. In Tafshin Lamed it was 20 years. The following year he started a second time Basi Legani, and he again did an analysis of Pedic Aleph. And the Maimorim are very different. It's not the same Maimor. What he said in 1951 and 1971 are quite different, very different. The last Basi Legani we have so far from the Rebbe was Tafshin Memches, 12 days before the Rebbetzin passed away, 1988, the Rebbe said, "Amai Basi Legani." When the Rebbetzin passed away, the Rebbe basically discontinued the saying of Maimorei Chassidus, more or less. So there was no more Basi Legani, but the Rebbe encouraged us to keep learning it. So when we got to Tafshin Nun Av, 1991, the Rebbe said start a third time. So that cycle finished 10 years ago, in 2010, Tafshin Ayin. So in Tafshin Ayin Aleph, in 2011, we started again for the 4th time learning Pedic Aleph. And on that basis, we're now holding by Pedic Yud. This is what we're holding right now, okay? So that's the discussion, okay? And again, I want to underscore that Basi Lagani is not a Maimed, it's the Maimed. It speaks to, as far as the Rebbe is concerned, it speaks to our generation. We're called the 7th generation, the Doir HaShvi, that are the ones that have to actually bring the Shechina Lamat, to bring the Shechina back down into this world. That means to bring about the Esgalos of Melech HaMashiach. And the Rebbe sees all of this. The Rebbe sees the mandate from our generation in the Friedrich Rebbe's Maimed, Basi Lagani. Now, Basi Lagani has 2 parts. Basically, okay? We're going to do the sheet. I'm doing the second page first, okay? The first page, if a miracle happens, we'll get to it. We're doing this, okay? Basi Lagani has 2 parts, basically. Basically is a big bad word that only I'm allowed to use. The opposite of basically is precisely, you understand? And things are supposed to be precise, not basic. But basically, Basi Lagani has 2 points. The first point is the mission. And the second point is the mandated, who does the mission. The mission is Lasses Le'Yizbarach Dira B'Tachtainim. The mission, the statement of Basi Lagani is that V'asu L'Mikdash V'Shechanti B'Soicha V'Toicha L'Echad V'Echad Mi'Yisrael. The idea of Basi Lagani is to bring the Shechina into this world, to make a Dira Le'Yizbarach B'Tachtainim, to bring Hashem into this world. It's the first 10 prakim, approximately, circa. And the second 10 prakim speak to who does the mission. And the answer is that the mission is achieved by Tzivus Hashem. Tzivus Hashem means the army of Hashem. And in the Maimed, the Rebbe makes a very important emphasis that the army of Hashem are not generals, and they're not sergeants, and they're certainly not kings and politicians. The army of Hashem are the foot soldiers, who do the work that they do by the behest, by the instruction, under the guidance of the king. And the Tzivus Hashem, the simple foot soldier, the Pashat Yid, who does what he's told in fighting a battle, which is called, Milchemes Beis David, the war to bring about this Esgalos Melech HaMashiach, is the one, first of all, who succeeds in this mission, who brings Mashiach B'Payil Mamesh, and the one for whom, one of the, of course, big ideas in the Basi Lagani, the Eibishter is Mevazbeis Kol Ha'oitzes. There's a Bizbaz Ha'oitzes, there's a dispensing of treasure which has never happened before, so long as the war should be won. Those are the 2 big ideas of Basi Lagani. The first big idea is the mandate, what needs to be done. And the second big idea is who does it, the Tzivus Hashem, with an emphasis that you don't mean the general. Tzivus Hashem, you mean the Einfach HaSoldat, the plain soldier, the private, who actually holds a gun and sits in a trench, for whom he is the one who brings about the coming of Melech HaMashiach. Okay? So let's go. I'm going to go in order. If anybody wants to make a comment or ask a question, now's a good time as any to interrupt me.
Yes. Is there a correlation between the 7 tzaddikim that brought the Shechina down to this world and the 7 Lubavitcher Rebbeim?
You know the story? Do you know the story?
Which story?
The story. I heard this story from my father-in-law. The Rebbe Maharash had a son who got married, and within a few weeks of his marriage, he got divorced. It was very terrible. The tragedy was embarrassing. So somebody came to his older brother, to the Razah, and said to him, "What happened? What happened?" So the Razah said to this guy, "If I answer you, you won't ask me any questions?" He says, "Yeah, if you answer, what's any questions?" He says, "Well, they got married, and they wanted to separate. According to Jewish law, to separate, you have to give a get. So they gave her a get, and they separated." So, if I answer, you won't ask any questions. Rabbi Yank. That's a yes or a no word, don't bother me. Welke. All of a sudden you're out of words, was. Of course there's a correlation, but that's it, we're not discussing it, okay? That's a long way to make a short point. You know this, you've heard the story from me 10 times. This is, when I say the story, this is it, I don't see this. Okay, anybody else want to say anything? I only bark, I don't bite. Yes, sir.
The second part of Basi Lagani, which speaks about who does the mission.
Yeah.
Where does that start in the mind?
More or less Perek Aleph. It's in Perek Yud. In our Perek, you already have Tzivus Hashem, and he speaks 2 different types of Tzivus Hashem. But the idea of soldaten is the Perek Aleph. Yeah. Okay, let's go. We're going to start from the beginning. Okay, number one, Basi legani achesikala. Right? I have come and I put in bracket back to my garden. My choisim, my sister, my bride. Now, of course, Basi legani is a pasuk in Shir Hashirim. Basi legani is a pasuk in Shir Hashirim. And any person who knows a little bit of Hebrew understands that it should not say Basi legani, it should say Basi legan. A person enters into a garden, they're not familiar with that garden, they're going in it for the first time. The pasuk doesn't say Basi legan, the pasuk says Basi legani, connoting, indicating a familiarity. In other words, when the Eibishter says Basi legani, I've been here before, right? That's why the Medrash explains the Makam Shahaya Ikri Betchila, that Kvayachal, the Eibishter, was in this garden, and then for whatever reasons the Eibishter departed from the garden. And Basi doesn't mean I have come to my garden. Basi means I have returned to my garden. It's very, very important in the Maimah Basi legani. And this is the head. This is the Indian. Okay, the Indian is. This is discussed at length in a lot of places in Hasidus. When the Eibishter created the world, he created a Shviras HaKelim. You've all heard about Shviras HaKelim, right? Shviras HaKelim. Shviras HaKelim has many contexts, right? Shviras HaKelim could mean a relation between a husband and a wife. Shviras HaKelim can mean teachers and students, yeah? Shviras HaKelim, Payachal, also means Eibishter in his world. When the Eibishter made the world, he was Boina Almanas listed and Sheised Almanas livnis. The Eibishter designed the world in such a way that the first world should break and then he should make it again. When the Eibishter made it again, he didn't start from the beginning. He took the broken pieces and created a new world. And by taking the broken pieces and creating the new world has pieces from the old world. And this sets up a phenomenon which we call Bira Netzutzes, the separation and then the uplifting and the refining and the including in Elokus of sparks, which is a very important part of why Hashem created the world according to Kabbalah. So the Eibishter created the world the second time around. He took these broken pieces and he organized them. He organized them the first, took the best pieces, the ones that were the most useful, and made a perfect world and threw the rest out, right? All those perfect pieces became a world that we call Tikkun, it's called Olam HaAtzilis. The Eibishter took those broken pieces and did it a second time. And he also made a very good world, and he created what's called Olam HaBriyah. Then he took those broken pieces, what was left, and he made another tikkun, another order, and he created a third world that was called Olam HaYetzirah. Then Koyachal, the Eibishter, made a fourth world using the same system of creating clarity and perfection and order, and he created Olam HaAsiyah. What did he do with the junk? He put them in the basement. Now, this is how it says in Kabbalah. Yeah, it's called B'tachtes HaAsiyah, or the basement, the sewer, whatever works for you. Okay, Adam and Chava came into a perfect world. And that's the pshat that Adam and Chava lived in Gan Eden, because the world was mevurer, it was metukan. The sparks that needed to be elevated were at arm's length. They were not in them and they were around them, they were someplace else. And Kvayachal, the Eibishter, was with them. The Eibishter was in this world together with Adam and Chava. This world was the Gan Eden. Kvayachal, the Eibishter, was here. Why? Because Ike Shechina betachtoinim hois. That's what the Maimah says. The Shechina was primarily here because this was the purpose of creation. But why was it the purpose of creation? Because Adam and Chava were living in a paradise, in Gan Eden, eating fruit, peiris, and the Gemara says, my peiri mitzvahs, the fruit that they were eating were mitzvahs, and the junk in the basement was being corrected and ordered, without direct involvement. They never touched it. And if Adam and Chava had followed all the rules, by Shabbos the whole part of the creation would have been finished. But they were curious. Yeah, they were very curious. I mean, we have to be careful. I talk about Adam and Chava. Yes, the Fort Zayd and Baba, after all. Yeah, Yitzir Kapav Shalach Kadosh Baruch Hu. They decided that they didn't want to fix anything from far. They wanted to fix it from close. If we're going to fix, we have to know what we're fixing. And they got fixed. You understand? They wanted to know good and evil, and then they became good and evil. There's a big difference between knowing good and evil in your head and having good and evil in your arms and legs and your heart. And that's what happened. So the sewer backed up. That's basically what happened. The basement flooded the first floor. So the Shechina left, Vashteis, the Lakus left, and it went Lamaila. Okay? What's Basi legani? I'm back. That's like Basi legani. I was here because the world was metukan and mavurid. I departed because there became a entanglement. What is the word? A taruvis. And when the Eibishter gave us the Torah, Hashem says, I come back. Why did the Eibishter come back? Because it says in Chazal, especially in Zohar, but there's really also a Gemara that says something more or less like this. When the Eibusha gave us the Torah, the world, particularly Yidden, went back to the pre-Eitz Hadas condition. The world, but especially Yidden, went back to the condition that the world was in prior to Eitz Hadas Tevera. That's why the Gemara says about the first luchis. It says in the Chumash, Choros ala luchis, that the Hebrew letters of the Aseres HaDibros were carved into the tablets, into the Aseres HaDibros. Says the Gemara, al tikra choros elo cheros. Do not read carved, read free, emancipated, free. Cheros mimalach hamavis. Yidden, after the Eitz Hadah, after the Matan Torah, found themselves in a similar position to Adam and Chava before the Chet. They were theoretically supposed to live forever. What happened? They were also curious. Yeah. If they're not our grandparents, they were uncles and aunts, and our cousins not mess with them either. Yeah, we all know what happened. There was an eagle. They messed it up. You understand? Again, we set back Vayachal, the divine plan. And I have a secret for you, if not for these setbacks, if Adam and Chava had not eaten from Mitzvahs Tevara, and the Yidden...
Sure.
If Adam and Chava had not eat Mitzvahs Tevara, if the Chet HaEgel had been committed, you and I and all of us would not exist. We'd be hair follicles in the goof of some big tzaddik from 1,000 years ago. We only exist because of these Yeridis. We were born, and we're going to have Tchias HaMeisim, and we're going to exist forever because of these mistakes. So, before you criticize your grandparents, think about what you benefited personally from these Devarim Nish Nechoinim, okay? They made an egel. Now, what should have happened? What should have happened? What should have happened is the same thing happened the first time. Maybe she was here. The sewers backed up, the world became unclean, he left. He came back a second time, Basi, I'm here, I'm back. What happened? We repeated the mistake in a slightly different way. The sewers backed up a second time. What should have happened the second time? Maybe you should have left. And the Eibusha says, this time I'm not leaving. I'm not going away. I'm staying here. How could the Eibusha be in a world which is chaotic, disorderly? And there's different answers to this question. And one of them is entry 2. This time I'm not leaving. Make me my own space. Eibusha allowed us to make this entire world his home, but for this world to be his home, it had to have what's called tikkun, it had to be orderly, it had to be meshudded, it had to be organized, and we created new entanglement. Eibusha says, make me a little tiny house. I don't need that much space. Eibusha says, I'm as big as I need to be and as small as I need to be. And inside those dalaramis, there'll be tikkun. They'll be already corrected. You understand? I made him Beis HaMikdash. They made him second Beis HaMikdash, first Beis HaMikdash, second Beis HaMikdash. And of course the Chazal tell us that in a microcosm, in a smaller way, every Beis HaKnesses and every Beis HaMedrash, especially Beis Rabbeinu Shebebavel, is a Mikdash Ma'at. Hashem didn't leave. I'm here. Right? That's what it says. V'asu li Mikdash v'shechanti b'toyecham. When Yidden sinned by the Egel HaZahav, Hashem says, I already gave the Torah. I already gave the Torah. I'm not leaving this world, but I'm confined to a house. But the Eibush to put a remez into this pasuk, right? V'asu li Mikdash, make me a house. Make me a space. This is my space. And if you know the halacha, Hashem is not allowed to have any neighbors. You know that? In the Midbar, the closest neighbor to the Eibishter was a Tchum Shaba, minus an inch from the Beis HaMikdash. Hashem doesn't live in the middle of Brooklyn or Manhattan. Around the Eibishter there's empty space. The halacha b'negei to Yerushalayim was Leinas Chalkel Shvatim. Yerushalayim had no permanent inhabitants. The Eibishter's city, the Eibishter's space is exclusively his. The Eibishter's plots, but this is his space. For also in Mikdash, Hashem says, make me a sanctuary, but then he puts in a remez. And the remez is b'toicham. Right? It should say, also in Mikdash, v'shechanti b'soichai, make for me a sanctuary, I'll live in it. And instead, there's a modification. Something which is curious, which leaves you wondering. It says, b'toicham, in them. So it says always, it says in Achrayim, it says in Alshich. This doesn't say in Medrash, doesn't say in the Gemara, this is from Achrayim. And of course, Alter Rebbe brings it in Likutei Torah. B'toicha means b'toich kol echad v'echad Yisrael. In the heart, in the mind, in the body, in the home, in the piece of earth, which belongs to every single Jew. Now this mem, at the end of the word b'toicham, where it says b'toicham rather than b'toichai, becomes the code of Basi Lagani. Because so far, all I did was tell you a story. Hashem was here, then he left, then he came back, then he needed to leave again. And he asked me to make him a house, and he moved into his house. So where do we come into this? And we come into this because when the Eibush Kvayochel moved into this premises, into this Beis HaMikdash, he made it very clear that Saleh HaMokam, he wants his house to expand. He wants to make his house bigger. How big? As big as the whole world. For the Eibush's house to expand and encompass the whole world, we have a task, we have a job. That's Basi Lagani, Rabbi say. Basi Lagani, the Maimah Basi Lagani, which is the basis for all the Rebbe's, the basis for the Rebbe's Torah is the Rebbe. But the Rebbe's, right? The Rebbe's source, the Raya that what Rebbe is saying is true, is this Maimah. And that's what the Maimon is saying. Hashem is in a house, and he wants to stretch that house to encompass the whole world, and that doesn't happen by itself. This is a mission on us. This is what we need to do, and that's the diuk. Make for me a sanctuary, dwell amongst you, amongst them. It doesn't say in it. It says amongst them, meaning that I'll rest in each individual Jew.
If not Chet HaEgel, there'll be no Mishkan?
You're asking me questions that I can't answer. I'll rephrase your question. If not not Chet HaEgel, you didn't say Chet HaTzadas. If not Chet HaEgel, Fanaz Asfora. There's different Eifanim. It depends when the Mishkan was told, right? You know the Sikh from the Rebbe in Chelik Vav, when it was told. According to certain Shittas, the Beis HaMikdash is a reaction to Chet HaEgel. In other words, it's a bias of tshuva. Had there not been a Chet HaEgel, the Beis HaMikdash would never Yid's home. Pavas nisht. There are different ways of understanding the Beis HaMikdash. This is one of the approaches. And in some of the Basi Laganis, the Rebbe brings this approach. That V'asol Mikdash is a reaction to the Chet. Not all, but some. The Rebbe's Maimorim have different, every Maimon is a little different, you know. Okay, so we read the entry number 3. Nisava HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hashem has a desire. Liyas Le Yizbarech, to have for himself Yizbarech. A home in the lowest realm. So of course you probably know this. Notice that I put the word Yizbarach in a parenthesis, because in the Medrash it does not say Yizbarach. The Medrash says Nisava Kadosh Baruch Liyas Le'idira B'Tachtainim. The Rebbe Rashab, the Frierdiker Rebbe's father, had a dream once, and he was encouraged to put Yizbarach into the text. And since that point, this has become standard. Nisava Kadosh Baruch Liyas Le'Yizbarach. We don't even know that there was a change made. Yizbarach is a modification to the Medrash, which was added after a Chalaim, after Chizay and Laila, of the Rebbe Rashab. And this is another way of saying in this phrase, in number 3, what's the most important word? The most important word, of course, is the word nisave. And by the way, in this year's Maimid in Tafshin Chof, the Rebbe spends a considerable part of one of the Prakim talking about this word nisave, right? Nisave means Hashem had a desire. So there is the famous Lashon from the Alter Rebbe, which is brought in the Maimorim, that the Alter Rebbe said of a Taivis Kein Kasha. Nisave HaKadosh Baruch Hu Liyas Le'idira B'Tachtainim, Hashem has a desire to have for himself in the home in the lowest realms. You can't ask questions on a Taivis. So my students, of course, ask me, so how come I ask them questions on Taivis? If the Eibush is entitled to can have any Taiva on Kashas, so why are they not entitled to have any Taiva on Kashas? So I explain to my students, this is Poshet common sense, but common sense is most uncommon. In convention, we talk about me and you. The meaning of the word Taiva, for people, the meaning of the word Taiva, correctly, contextually, is weakness. A taiva doesn't mean a desire. A taiva means a desire that makes me buckle at the knee. Something that takes away my strength. That's what a taiva means. Everybody knows what taivas is. Some people have taivas of food. Some people have taivas of clothes. Some people have taivas of covet. Whatever a person's taiva is, taivas make us weak in our desire for them, and they make us weaker in our indulgence. So those are not taivas or no kasha. Those taivas are a kasha. They make our life difficult, because next week, next month, next year we decide, we should stop indulging in this taiva, and we have no self-control. We lost it. We forfeited our self-control. Why? Because of a taiva is ken kasha. The Eibush has a taiva, but it doesn't make him weak. It's not coming from weakness. It's coming from something which is higher than what we could understand. That's the taich. Of a taiva is ken kasha. And the Eibush, there's no kasha. The Eibush has a taiva. Okay? That's a nisava. What is the Eibishter's taiva? Lias leis barach dir b'tachtenim. So you have the Maimorim Samach Vav. Everybody knows this idea that when Chassidus asserts, the Alter Rebbe asserts, it's Tanya Perek Lamed Vav, that the real reason for creation, the real reason the Eibishter created the world, is not the reasons that are found in Kabbalah and in Medrash, but the real reason for creation is Nesava Kodesh Baruch Hu Lias leis barach dir b'tachtenim. The big chiddush of this reason is not what the reason is. Whether it's Hashem wants to be nice, or Hashem wants to express his potentials, or Hashem wants to have a home in the lowest realm. It's that all the other reasons are reasons. Why did Hashem make the world? Because. Nisave is not a reason. It's not an explanation. It's not why. The Friedrich Rebbe has a maimer in Yiddish, which I love, where he says, Farvosnis ave weisen mir nicht. Why he wants, we don't know. Aber as nisave weisen mir gewiss. But that he desired, this we know for sure. In other words, the meaning of the word nisave is, you can't ask why. Not you can't ask why because you're not smart enough. You can't ask why because it's not a logical choice. The Eibishter's taiva is not he thought about it, he figured it out, he decided. This is ani and atzmi, it's something which goes kvayochel, higher than the seichel of Elokus. The Eibishter's desire for Adira B'Tachteinim is not based on the fact that it makes sense. It's desired based on the fact that this is what he wants. That's that you're in this ave. Hashem wants to have a home B'Tachteinim in the lowest world. Now,
so why can't you just say you can't understand the Eibishter? The reason why we say the Save, to say we can't understand the Eibishter, that's it. No. Why use the word Nisave? You say it's Lamailo, we can't understand.
There's a rule in Torah. I'm not sure exactly what your question is, honestly, but I'll answer what I think your question is. And if it's not the right question, you heard the story already. You should hear the Maisa. Yeah. The Gemara says, "Teirehi v'lilmad anitzar." It's a Gemara. It's a whole page in Shas which goes through a bunch of things, and the conclusion is Teirehi. The meaning of the words Teirehi v'lilmad means if something is written in Torah, it can be understood. Yeah, you can't understand the Eibishter, but you can understand the Eibishter's Torah. So when it says in the Eibishter's Torah that the Eibishter wants something that doesn't have an explanation, he has to give a disclaimer. This is a taiva. If it's written in Torah, it has to be understandable. This doesn't have an explanation.
Does it have a connection to what we call Nisave, Taino, Grotz?
Okay.
No, I'm just asking.
You know the story, right? The story is no more questions. That's the story, basically. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
What's with Anna? Isn't that the reason?
It's the same thing. Why? Take a look in Shari Yichud Emunah Perek Zayin. The first half of Shari Emunah Zayin talks about Noam Lech. The whole issue of the beginning of Shari Yichud Emunah Perek Zayin is why the Eibishter allows for there to be Yechuda Tatorah. You learn Shari Yichud Emunah. You learn Shari Yichud Emunah, yeah? You're supposed to say yes, no, so Bismayna that Talmud. You know the whole Chassidus. There's a common sense question. The common sense question says, if there is a higher yichud, then the lower yichud is a lie. If ein night mavadeh, why are we talking about bitl hayesh? You understand the question? I need you to nod, or I'm not going on. Don't do this to me. It's not Tafshin Nun Tes. It's Tafshin Pei. It's 21 years later. That's the shayla. Al Shari Yichud Emunah is lahava mashkosa b'zeir. Shema Yisrael Yechudei Allah, but Hashem Yechudei Allah. It's a simple kasha. If Yechudei Allah is true, Yechudei Allah is redundant. You know what the answer is? Hashem goes away from Yechudei Allah, creates a space for Yechudei Allah for the sake of Ana Emlich. Don't trust me. Go home, take out a Tanya, take Shari Yichud, read the first 2 pages of Zayin. That's the B'Tachteinim. It's the same thing. It's Bitl Hayesh. B'Klolos. Only I'm allowed to say basically. You're not allowed to use that word. Go ahead.
What about when it says in Chassidus that Sava B'Tei Tachteinim is for a chiddush, like a talking bird?
Okay, we're done. We're done with that. Okay, moving on. I'm sorry, I'm picking on you, but I got to stop at someplace. Okay. Number four. Now we get to the meat and potatoes of the Maimer. Okay. So Basi Legani Basi Lagani is not only a story. Understand that. Basi Lagani is not only a story. It's a mandate. It would only be a story if it would say in the Pasuk, V'shachanti b'soicha. You see what happens? One letter in the Chumash makes our life so wonderful. If it said V'shachanti b'soicha, Basi Lagani would be a story, once upon a time. Because it says B'toicham, Basi Lagani becomes an instruction. The Beis HaMikdash that we have is a beginning of making this whole world a Mishkan or Mikdash Lo Yizbarach. You understand? So what follows is this. Now that we understand that the Eibush that came into this world, and again, at least the way we're steering the Maimed, every Maimed of Basi Lagani is a bit different. And when we did the Chet HaEgel, Klayachol, the Eibush that couldn't live in the street anymore. So we said, make me a house. But we also understand that when the Eibush said, make me a house, that's only a beginning. Because the end has to be every Yiddish house has to be a Mishkan and Mikdash Lo Yizbarach. So now comes the question. How do we make our home into a Beis HaMikdash? The Eibush gave us a Beis HaMikdash in Yerushalayim and Harameria, wherever it is. How do I make my home to be part of the V'shachanti b'soicha? And there's a very simple answer. Learn from what's familiar. Look at the original model. You want to make your house, I want to make my home to Beis HaMikdash. Look at how the Beis HaMikdash was built. And you'll examine the original, you'll understand how to make the duplicates. You understand? We're doing the same thing again. The Beis HaMikdash we make in our home has to be modeled after the Beis HaMikdash that the Yidden made for the Eibush Klayachol thousands of years ago. And the answer is 2 words. Iskafia v'ishapcha. It's number 4. Iskafia. Iskafia means to bend. And ishapcha means to change over, to make it into something different. The original Beis HaMikdash was created through Iskafia v'ishapcha. The Beis HaMikdash in its few feet that it occupied in ancient times was created through bending and transforming. And the message for every person is we duplicate the Beis HaMikdash through an iskafia and an ishapcha of our own. And I'll explain this to you in English. The avoid of making this world a Mishkan, a Mikdash Lo Yizbarach, you cannot do if you're hiding in a shtibel. Some people have to hide in shtiblach and they're very important. We call them Yisachar. But they're only a half. Along with the Yisachar has to be a Zvulun. If you're going to make this world a Mishkan, a Mikdash Lo Yizbarach, you have to face it. You go out into the world, you engage with the world, not chas v'shalom, do you allow the world to speak to you, but you speak to the world. That's the meaning of the word. Iskafia, to bend, ishapcha, to transform. The beginning of bending and transforming is with ourselves, and the continuation of the bending of the world we meet outside of our little dalaram is the world that we have to do, we have to affect. Iskafia v'ishapcha. The original Beis HaMikdash was not created by making holiness holy. The original Beis HaMikdash was created by making unholiness holy. And the way you make unholiness holy is you. Can you turn your? Can you help him with the speaker?
Why don't you turn it off?
The original Beis HaMikdash was not created by using holy material for a holy purpose. It was created by taking ordinary material and using it for holy purpose, and that's how we duplicate the Beis HaMikdash. Iskafia v'ishapcha means in ourselves and in our lives and in our world we bend and we transform. Okay. So that's the Basi Lagani. Okay, Basi Lagani means we have to extend the house of Hashem to encompass the whole world. The way we make Kvayachol, the Beis HaMikdash encompass the whole world, is by us engaging with the world, and this is called Iskafia v'ishapcha. Okay? And then the Rebbe gives 3 examples. The Friedrich gives 3 examples. 5, 6, and 7. Okay? Number 5 is Perek Beis in the Maimer. Number 6 is Perek Gimel Dal and Hey. And number 7 is Perek Vav Zayin and Ches. I'm not sure it's Tes, but most people like to say Tes. It just makes it very neat. Okay? So Perek Beis is 5. Perek Gimel Dal and Hey is 6. And let's just say for the purposes of argument, Vav Zayin, Ches, and Tes are 7. Now, of course, you'll immediately see an anomaly. And I find this very curious. And be'emes, it's a tzarachian. Logic would dictate that 5 should be after 6 and 7. Because 6 and 7 are talking about building the Beis HaMikdash. 5 is talking about what you do once the Beis HaMikdash is built. in the Beis HaMikdash, you bring karbonis. The sequence is, first he talks about what you do in the Beis HaMikdash, afterwards he discusses how you build it. And there's a precision here, there's a diuk, there's a reason why the Rebbe does it this way, but you know the story. No questions. Okay. So, one at a time, do this quick. Clocks have no hearts. Karbonis, right? The idea of a carbon, everybody knows this, is the idea of Adam ki Yaakov became carbon lavaya, right? It says in Chumash, and it's brought from Chazal, and I think this also is a Chazal from the Alter Rebbe. It doesn't say Adam became ki Yaakov, Adam Yaakov became. So in the Maimer it says Mikem u bechem adavar talui. But it also was brought down that mikem means you have to sacrifice yourself. When a person brings a carbon, he's not bringing a piece of meat. When a person brings a carbon, he's sacrificing his own behema, his own animal. And our animal is an animal, right? Our animal is an animal. Our animal is an animal. We know exactly what that means. This you don't have to read about in books, right? If you're not sure, just ask your wife and you'll know 100% what it means. Yeah. But Mistama, you can figure it out even when you're sitting in shul with the guys and the Rebbe is not around. You can also have a pretty good idea what the animal is. The animal is, what's the animal? He's not bad. He's not bad. He just wants what he wants. The animal is kosher. He's not a treif animal. He's not a tater v'datus. The animal's not a guy who kill people. But if something tastes good and feels good and is comfortable, he wants it. And if it's hard, he will nicht. That's all. It's an animal. Grass is fine for me. Don't make me cook food and don't let me have to wait 4 hours for my meal. I want it now and I want it here and so on. He's an animal. He's lazy and he's selfish and he's short-sighted and he's an animal. But don't think about this animal guy. He's very black and white. He's not nuanced. He's not smart. He doesn't analyze things. This is what he wants. So the animal stands in our way. And the man weighs 140 pounds. The animal weighs 260 pounds. It's not exactly a match, you understand. The animal is bigger and stronger. And he moves slower because his brain is denser. But you have to move him. So there's an interesting thing about this animal. If you can get the animal to think like you, the animal's chesreines become midas. The fact that the animal is not so smart, not so nuanced, means he doesn't think about things a million times. When the animal becomes dedicated to what the man, what the divine soul wants, he runs full steam ahead. If you can turn the animal around and use the animal passions for avodas Hashem, the animal is a tmimus dike. He's a simple person. He's an animal. He's simple. He's not nuanced, doesn't think about 50 million times, doesn't ask questions ahead and questions ahead, and you tell him what to do, he does it. You have to harness the animal. Every one of us has an animal. Some of us have little animals. Some of us have big animals. I think all of us are pretty delicious. As a heftig gesunte nefesh abamisen, that's our generation. It's a specialty of our times. If you can redirect the behemoth, the fire of the animal soul, when it's redirected to avodas Hashem, is unbelievably powerful. Even more powerful koyachol than the nefesh alakis. That's the first example. How do you make this world home for the Eibishter? Zainish katzig. Don't be a lemele. Engage the behemoth, the animal, and use the fire of that animal for avodas Hashem. That's example number one. Example number two is 6. So we all know it says in the pasuk from the and so on and so forth that the Beis Hamikdash was built from wood called atzei shitim. It's built from wood called atzei shitim. So it says in Chassidus, why were the boards of the Beis Hamikdash called atzei shitim? You have to look in the Gemara. I don't even know if there's a wood by that name. Shitim is atzei shitim is arozim. It's cedar. The Gemara says there's asara minayeres. There's 10 different types of arozim. I'm not even sure if one of them is shitim. Shitim is a biblical term. I may be wrong. But atzei shitim is a borrowed term. Atzei shitim is not the proper name of this wood. Atzei shitim is used because of the connotation, because of the meaning, because of the message. You're taking wood that's shtus. Shtus del yomazeh. Shtus means stupidity. You know, they translate the Kuntas Amayin, a treatise on folly. Folly is so wonderful. You know why? Because I'm folly about folly. It shouldn't be a treatise on folly. It should be a treatise on stupidity. You know why? Because everybody knows what stupid means, but it's not respectful, you see. The Yetzer Hara could be as stupid as he wants. He can make us as stupid as we want. But you can't write in the title of a book. I'm not criticizing anybody here. You have to write a treatise on folly. But it's a treatise on Zainish ken idiot. That's what it means. Shittim is stupid. It's not foolish, it's stupid. And the difference between stupid and foolish is just how it makes you feel. Foolish is okay, stupid makes you feel uncomfortable. That's the whole point, you see. Shtus is stupid. What's stupid? What's stupid? If I could live here, and I live here, I'm stupid. The Rebbe Rashab wrote a kuntis called Kuntis of Mayan. It's a masterpiece. The entire kuntis of Mayan is predicated on one word, shtus. Don't be stupid. That's what the whole kuntis is about. If you could be involved in ideas, and you become the world's greatest plumber, you're a shaita. Yeah, but I am so good at making those pipes. The Hebrew gave you a mind, and you could be learning Divrei Elokim Chayim, and instead you're fixing pipes, you're a shaita. Stupid doesn't mean wrong. Stupid doesn't mean bad. It just means less than reasonable. Hashem gave us koyches. A person has to maximize himself. Shtus means behaving in a way that's less than reasonable. Problem is, when a person is already caught up in shtus, if we allow ourselves to immerse into a lifestyle which is foolish, which is stupid, you can't just write it by becoming rational. You can't say, okay, from now on I'm going to be reasonable. The only way to bend something that's been bent this way is to bend it in the opposite direction. And that's why the Rebbe introduced us to the idea of Shtus de Kedusha. Shtus de Kedusha is also not reasonable, but it's not stupid. It's super rational, it's beyond reason. Shtus de Kedusha means when a Yid serves Hashem in a way which may be self-effacing, maybe it embarrasses him, maybe it's unbecoming of him. Like the famous story with David HaMelech, he was a king and he was rolling in the streets, and Michal Bas Shaul says to him, they made a shepherd into a king and he's embarrassing him and he's embarrassing the whole nation. So David HaMelech says to his wife, I wish I could embarrass myself more. That's called Shtus de Kedusha. Shtus de Kedusha means that in Kedusha there's a need occasionally for even the people who are very bright and very smart to put aside their rational controlled self and behave in the way that's super rational. Crazy! But crazy in a favorable way, which is necessary. And the Torah teaches us that's how you make a Beis HaMikdash. The Beis HaMikdash isn't made by sitting in the middle of the road. The Beis HaMikdash is created. Eskafi v'eshapche means that occasionally there's a need to behave in a way which is higher than reason. That's Perek Gimel Daled Hey. Okay, now, number 7. The boards of the Beis HaMikdash, what the Rebbe says about this few prakim is this the word aleph beis, letters. The word for the Beis HaMikdash boards were keresh, kufrei shin. But it can also be spelled, you rearrange those letters, it spells sheker or kesher. Sheker means a lie. And the world is full of lies. And the Zohar says that how do you tell a lie? The Zohar gives counsel on telling lies also. You need help. You need good excuse. You get a good excuse. Open up the Zohar, I'll give you instructions on telling lies. The Zohar says you want to tell a lie, you want to be believed. First, you show a truth and you accentuate it, like the Chazir who sits in a sewer and he shows you, look, I got split hooves, I'm kosher. You want people to believe your lie, you tell a truth and you emphasize it. You emphasize that truth, and then you sneak in your lie behind. That's called sheker. The letter shin is a letter of kedusha. Letters kuf of reish, letters of klipa, and the whole thing is a lie. And if you want to make a dilas baruch you have to turn around the lie of this world and make it to a kesher and a keresh for the Eibishter. I'm getting the eyes, so let's go this quick, okay? Number 8.
We can also get the Tavshin Kav Tavshin Mem.
I can't hear you.
Are we going to get to Tavshin Kav and Tavshin Mem?
Do I need to?
Perhaps. We don't want to do false advertising.
How much time do I have?
How much you want to?
I don't know.
Tell me, you're the boss.
They're not locking the shul, are they?
When people start walking out, we're running out of time.
I could stop what I'm doing and I could do the Perek. It's your choice. Okay? Going to the Maimed. Huh? Ich habe schon gemacht, Kitzel Noneb. Okay, was hab ich in Oneb, aber ich habe mal gedommet zu der ganze Geschäft. Okay, I want to say something before I even start to read, because I don't know how much time I have. The Rebbe said a Maimed in Tafshin Chof in 1960, I mean 60 years ago this year, which is based on the Perek Yud of the Maimed. It's a pretty long Maimed. The Maimed, the tape is almost an hour, which is a very long Maimed, very, very long. In the printed page, I think it's like 15 or 16 pages. It's very long. It's very, very long. But it's so orderly. The Rebbe literally studies the Perek in order. He reads a few lines and explains it. He reads a few lines and explains it. He goes through the entire Pedic, I think it's 7 or 8 points, and he goes through, he reads a few lines, explains it. Okay? So I'm very limited with time, and so I'm going to focus on certain points from the Maimer of Tavshin Chaf, which I think are most important. One of the ideas that the Rebbe brings in Maimer of Tavshin Chaf is he focuses on Vizehu Vizehu Basi Lagani. If you're looking at the first page, it's I guess 11 lines down. Vizehu Basi Lagani, you see it? Vizehu Basi Lagani Lagnuni. You recognize these words. We just did these words, okay? Lemakom shay ikri betchila. That Basi Lagani means not I have come to my garden, I have returned to my garden. The tchilas hakavona bebrias v'eshavos ha'elamis, the original purpose for the creation of the world is mashen is ava kadosh baruch hu, the Eibishter has the strength li yeslei yizbarech, to have for himself dira, a home b'tachteinim, in the lowest world. So in this line, the Rebbe has a Pedic, and the first part of that Pedic, he spoke what I spoke to you before about Nisaveh. In the second part of the Pedic, he brings a Teres Baal Shem Tov. He brings a Teres Baal Shem Tov. And the Nekud of the Teres Baal Shem Tov is, the point that he brings out is, it's based on, it's an analysis of something that the Baal Shem Tov says. And the way it develops is, okay, the point of the Baal Shem Tov is that a person has to be very weary of false humility. That's the Nekud. A person has to be very weary of false humility. I forgot what expression he uses, but that's the spirit of it. Because the Baal Shem Tov brings a pasuk and so on, and he argues that the things we do in this world, the life that a Jew lives on this earth, not only touches and affects and matters to the neshamas and the malachim l'mayla, but it matters to the Eibishter himself. He brings a pasuk that the Eibishter sits and watches our lips to hear the words that are going to come from our mouth. So the Rebbe says one of the greatest diseases, and it's certainly prevalent in our generation, is the disease that's called Mi Ani Umani. Mi Ani Umani means, who am I anyway? What difference do I make? And the Rebbe says Mi Ani Umani, besides it being a lie, is very destructive. The antidote, the answer, the antithesis of Mi Ani Umani is the understanding that whether you think highly of yourself or you don't think highly of yourself, the Eibishter thinks highly of you. The Eibishter sits, I forgot, he brings a pasuk, he guards the lips of a Yid to see the words that are going to come out of his mouth. I can't hear you. There's more words. Okay, we're not going to know, okay? You're embarrassing me. I have my own copy if I need. Okay, so that's how the Rebbe, when he reads this line, that's how the Rebbe explains it. The explanation that the Rebbe gives is that what the Rebbe brings out, very important for us to know, is a person has to understand that the life we lead is important. It may not be important to me, but it's very important to the Eibishter. So we should not what's the right word? We should not understate or underestimate the responsibility that we have. This is one of the points that the Rebbe makes in the Maimer. Another point that makes in the Maimer, which is a very interesting point, is the Frierdiker Rebbe has a kasha. The Frierdiker Rebbe has a kasha. What's the kasha that the Frierdiker Rebbe asks? It's the last line on the first side of the page. It says, "Ditzarich lahavin Mahu zed Yisrael nikroyim tzivas Hashem." You see the last line on the first page. It says, I have a question. Why are Yidden called tzivas Hashem? Now this question dominates the Maimer Basi Lagani, even Tavshin Chav, but it certainly dominates the Maimer of Tavshin Mem. It becomes, so to speak, the preeminent point of the Maimer of Tavshin Mem. And you should know next year, in Tavshin Chav Aleph, the Rebbe is going to revisit this whole thing again of tzivas twice. There's a lot of the Teda Ed of Pasha's boy, which happens to be our Pasha, is very well represented in this Basi Lagani and also next year's Basi Lagani. The Frierdiker Rebbe says, why are Yidden called tzivas Hashem? And the Rebbe spends so many pages explaining what the question is. What's wrong with calling Yidden tzivas Hashem? So the Rebbe explains. He says that it says in Chazal, or it says in Sfarim, that Yidden are called Adam Elyon. Yidden are called Adam because we're kvayachal like a lakus, like godliness. So every allusion to mankind Any time we use a word or a phrase that refers to the Jewish people, it has to reflect Elyon. Yisrael Adam al Elyon means that our reality reflects the reality of Elokus. And therefore there's a kasha. What's the kasha? It's a long, complicated Kabbalah, which I don't have time for. And by the way, if anybody is desperate to know, please visit my website. I have I gave Tav Shechaf and Tav Shemem. All the Shurim are there, they're available. I think there's a website called Basi Lagani, right? Basi Lagani, anybody know about that? Yeah, so you can go. I have Shurim on both my modim. I did already Shurim on both my modim. Tav Shechaf and Tav Shemem, and you can listen to me until you're sick of me, I promise you. But the Nikud is this. The Alter Rebbe is Machadesh, Achidish, and Kabbalah that doesn't say Kisvei Arizal. Alter Rebbe says something, there's no source before him. That's why it's special to us. And the Rebbe speaks about, he says that in Tafshin Mem, since it's not found before, it's special to us. What is this Chiddush? According to Kabbalah, the names of Hashem are all in Atzilus. The names of the Eibush, Hashem has 7 names, or 10 names, or the Spheres of Atzilus. The Alter Rebbe is Mechadish, and it's based on a Mishnah and a Gemara, Masechta Shvuos, that there's a Shem Kodesh B'Biyah. That there's a holy name of Hashem also in B'ri Yetzirah and Asiyah. And that Shem Kodesh is Tzvois. Not Tzivis Hashem, Tzvois. The Shem Tzvois by itself, the Alter Rebbe is Machadish, and Kabbalah is a name of Hashem in the lower worlds. The meaning of this name Tzvois is Oisu B'Tzavad Elei. Oisu B'Tzavad Elei means you have a host, you have an army of many representatives, many Tzava means divisions, fine, whatever works. Oisu B'Tzavad Elei means amongst the divisions of the Eibush himself. And you can identify him. He's amongst the creations, but Ois, he stands out. You can identify him. Shem Tzvois means that even in the worlds that are less than godliness, not only is godliness present, godliness can be identified. So the Alter Rebbe is Mechadish, and like I said to you before, it's based on a Gemara. How could it be a Chiddush based on a Gemara? That's a very interesting story, but Alter Rebbe doesn't say an Arizal. Alter Rebbe is Mechadish, it's the name of Hashem and Bri Yitzir and Nasir. It's called Tzvois. So then the Rebbe says, now you understand the Frierdiker Rebbe's Kashe, Tzarech Lahavin Ma'u Zeh Yisrael Nekraim Tzivos Hashem. The generation that left Mitzrayim was in the Madrega of Atzilus. The Yidden, not only Moshe Rabbeinu, the Yidden who left Mitzrayim were in the Madrega of Atzilus. If the Yidden who left Mitzrayim Madrega of Atzilus, why are they using a name which is representative of Elokus that's lower than them? Tzvais means Elokus in the lower worlds, and Yidden are in the Madrega of Atzilus. Of all names, Yidden are given an illusion. And again, it's based on this idea that Yisrael Adam al Elyon, every name that you use for the Jewish people has to mirror Kvayachol, the names that you use Lagabi the Meibish and Lagabi Elokus. Why would Yidden be called Tzvais if they're higher than that name? That's what the Frierdiker Rebbe has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 words. The Rebbe has 7 pages, you understand? Why would Yidden be given an illusion, be given a reference to an idea that Kvayachol, they're standing higher than it? The Yidden are there, the Shamas Datzilas, and Tzvois the Shem Kod. This is the Rebbe's Kasha, okay? And then comes the answer. Turn the page. Okay, and the answer is Ella, second line from the top. I'm going to read, okay? We're going to read a little bit. The teretz is like this. The tzava yesh boy gimel pirush. Understand what we're doing. We're answering a question. Remember the question. The question is, Yidden are in Kvayachol at that time, not us. We shouldn't be called Tzvais. We should be called, what should we be called? Sweet little boy chicks. Kinar Yisrael Vayaveyo. Yeah. That's what we should be called. Just see good because there's nothing else to look at. Yeah. But the Yidden in Mitzrayim were in the Shamas of Atzilus. So the Kash of the Maimer, why are you calling the Shamas of Atzilus Tzivos Hashem? And the answer is as follows. Tzava yesh boy gimel pirushim. The word tzava, the Hebrew letters, Tzadik Beis Aleph. In Hebrew, the words have what's called shoroshim. Right, the letters go back, words have a 3-letter root for the most part. And in Hebrew, often the same shoydish has many meanings. It's one of the things about Lashon HaKodesh. One word has multiple meanings. You know, in other languages, you have many words that mean the same thing. In Lashon HaKodesh, one word has multiple meanings. And oftentimes the meanings are quite disparate. Right? I'll give you a classic example. Spherois, Eser Spherois, right? What's the word of the word Sphira? Samach Peiresh, right? It means to count, it means to tell, it means to shine, it means to illuminate, and it means to cut hair. How all those words fit into one? And they actually explain, there's a big discussion in Hasidus, how there's a connection between all those definitions. And the same is true here. Tzava has 3 translations, very distinct translations. All 3 of them contribute to why Yidden are called Tzivas Hashem. Aleph, Lashon Chayil. Tzadik Beis Aleph, armies means soldiers. This one, the Rebbe is not going to discuss till next year. Mashiach and line coming in the next page, Peirik Yud Aleph, the Rebbe explores Tzava Lashon Chayil. Beis. The second one is Man Mugbal, limited time. And the Rebbe is Medayik. Mugbal. Not theoretical time, but actually measurable, limited time. If you learn the Rebbe's Maimah, you'll see he goes through this whole thing, how Dafke and Gevul, you have a Gili of Einarech and Nin of Atzmos. Dafke, limited time. And for this he brings a pasuk. Kamesha Kosov, Halei Tzavel Enesh Alei Oretz V'Goymer. V'Hagimel. And the third meaning of the word Tzava is Meloshen Tzivya. Tzivya means colorful or beautiful, multicolored, beautiful. U'kedivre Razal al Pasuk. Like it says in the Medrash on the Pasuk, Vayechulu Hashemayim V'chol Tzavom, says the Chazal, it's Tzavyoinam Nivru. Hashem made everything whole, Hashem made everything complete, Hashem made everything beautiful. Okay? So you have 3 translations of the word Tzava. The first is armies, the second is time, and the third is beauty. Now, for reasons known only to the Rebbe brings 3 translations and then proceeds to explain them backwards. The first translation the Rebbe explains that the Tzava means Yoifi. The second translation the Rebbe explains that Tzava means Man. And the last translation the Rebbe explains that Tzava means Chaya. You understand? He brings 3 meanings of the word Tzava and then proceeds to develop them in reverse order. And all of this is answering a question. Why would Yidden who are Madreg of Neshama Savatzilas be called Tzava when Tzava is a name in the lower worlds? And the first answer is because Tzava means beauty. Okay, Pirush, this means the Neshama is Yisrael. He gives the third translation first. He forgot about the first one. He forgot about the second one. He's going to go back to them later. In the backwards order. He immediately explains the third translation of the word Tzava that it means Yoifi, that Im Shehem Chalukam B'Madregos. Jewish people are by definition diverse, disparate, different. We're not all the same. You have Morei, what does he say it? Baalei Asog, great intellectuals. Shei Morei Torah, masters of Torah. Moreover, some of them are Morei Rozin, Viseidis, Eloin, masters of the mysterious and secret from on high. Morei Chukmasa, matters of Chochmah. In addition, Ve'yeshna Manosha Pshutim, you also have common people, ordinary folk. They're not in a position to understand Torah. They're certainly not in a position to understand the secrets of Torah. They're bound, so to speak. Their Yiddishkeit is contained by maisim, by good deeds. Shemekaimim esateru mitzvahs b'tmimus. They do mitzvahs with a sincerity, with a piety. Gam, in addition, oiskim, each one is engaged. Ish b'avados, each one in his own task. Lefiyarke, according to his worth, because of his measure. B'tamchin de'erais, in supporting Torah, begufam u'b'vamayna b'cholu, with their body and their wealth. Says Rabbi, hinizehu tzivyoinam. That's what makes the Jewish people beautiful. Right? We had a mayor whose name you can't mention in a shul. You could mention in a shul, but I'm just being provocative. Who talked about the Great Mosaic. I don't know if you remember the Great Mosaic. Right? New York City is a great mosaic. They used to believe in the olden days, once upon a time, they believed in the melting pot. And then the melting pot melted and all the fluid fell out. And they replaced it with what's called multiculturalism. So New York City had a mayor, the Great Mosaic. A mosaic means those pictures you see on the walls in the train station. You know, a bunch of little tiles that are put together to make all these very interesting colors. And you take a whole bunch that don't fit together, you put them together, and all together it looks beautiful. That's the meaning of the word Tzava. When you have so many different types, and we join together to make a whole, that is yoifi. That is beautiful. Let's see if we can read a little bit more. Okay? This is the beauty of the Jewish people. That's real beauty. For something to be truly beautiful, it has to consist of many colors. When you have something of a single color, that's not beautiful. Specific, when you have many colors, That's beautiful. And whereas, in as much as there's so many different types of Yidden and everybody does something different, it amounts to an Achdus, which reveals Shem Havaya. And this is the first answer. The question is, why are Yidden called Tzivos Hashem? Now, to be very candid, why we're called Tzivos Hashem, we understand. Because we're Neshamas of Asiyah, you understand? We're the lowest of the low. And we're very important because we're alive today and we're going to bring Mashiach. But why we should be called Tzivos Hashem is completely reasonable. But why were the Yidden who left Mitzrayim called Tzivos Hashem? So the Rebbe says they may have been Neshamas of Atzilus, but already then, the Jewish people were not defined by one size fits all. It wasn't a bunch of people who were copies of one another. There were many different types. And what makes the Jewish people, the Jewish nation, is the fact that we're all different. So the question was, why are Yidden who are in Mishdeig of Atzilus called Tzivos Hashem? Tzav is a name in Bria, and the answer is because we're beautiful in Atzilus, and it's a Chiddush. And the beauty that we have, even in the Mishdeig of Atzilus, is dafka when we have a sharing, a diversity, and we share with one another. I think there's something deeper to this, but that's the first answer. Okay, the first answer to the question, why were Yidden called Tzivos Hashem? Because together they made something beautiful. So even though Tzvos is the name of the Eibishter in Bria, but the concept of Yofi and Atzilus justify the Jewish people being called them. That's the simple pshat. That's a simple pshat of this first teretz. And later in the Pedic, he brings noch a pshat. I'll read one more, okay? V'tzava shu hagabala umayit. It means another reason why Yidden would be called Tzivos Hashem, even when they're in Madrega of Atzilus, because the notion of tzava means measure time. And he brings the pasuk al derech yomim yutzaru v'loy echad v'chulu. It's similar to the notion that Hashem has created days, and every person is given a predetermined number of days. Every person is given a predetermined number of days. And in our days we have to bring echad, we have to bring the Eibishter. So because we were given a predetermined number of days, we're called Tzivos Hashem, because tzava means time. Tzava means time, and we all have time. Our life is defined by a limited time, and we therefore called Tzivos Hashem. So the Rebbe has a commentary on this, and I'm going to finish the shir with this Bli Neder. I want to walk out here before you're all gone. He says a very interesting word. The Rebbe says. He says the following. I think it's a Torah from Tzemach Tzedek, that in Torah, one of the units of time is Yom, is a day. And there's a lot of discussion in Chassidus about this. Yom consists of a day and a night. Yom consists dafka of a day and a night. A day doesn't mean 24 hours of time. A day means a 24 hours time when you have darkness and you have light. And the diuk of the pasuk is Yomim Yutzaru. It doesn't say Zman Yutzaru, Yomim. Hashem gives us individual days. So the Rebbe explains the connotation, the meaning of the word days is that our life is divided up into different circumstances. There's a circumstance which is called light, and there's a circumstance which is called darkness. And the Rebbe says, amongst other things, circumstances which are called light and circumstances which are called darkness means Yetzer Tev and Yetzer Hara. So the diak of Yomim Yotzaru is that the time the Eibishter gave us consists of light and darkness. The time the Eibishter gave us consists of moments of clarity and illumination, and moments of struggle with the darkness. And that's how we achieve the V'lo Yachad Behem. The Eibishter is brought into Yomim because of the fact that not all our days are sunny. Some of our days are dark and night, and it's the combination of light and dark that makes our days complete. So, to answer the question, why would Neshamas of Atzilus be called Tzivos Hashem when the Shem Tzvos, the Shem Kodesh and Biyah? The answer is because even those Neshamas of Atzilus live their life in days, D-A-Y-S, and the day consists of light and darkness, and the need to struggle with the darkness and to transform it into light. That's the second answer to why that day in the midbar were called Tzivos Hashem. And there's more, and thank you all for coming and listening.